please give your full attention and derech eretz to Rabbi Sufrin as he shares with us some inspirational words for Yud Shevat.
Good morning and Shalom Aleichem. Thank you, Rabbi Kessman. Thank you, JJ Duchman. Thank you, all of you, for having me here today. It's a great honor for me to be here in your school. It's a privilege for me to be here. And what a great, I've only walked in here for 3 or 4 minutes, and what a great atmosphere we feel here. You know, when you come from one country to another, which is very different, and England is very different to California, for many, many reasons. First of all, it's warm here, even in your winter. And for me, this is like a summer day. This is like Erev Pesach. This is a beautiful day. You're probably all thinking it's very cold, but it's very, very warm. But there's another reason that you're all very, very lucky. And that I live in a community. I live in London, but on the outside of London. It's not exactly London, it's just on the outside of London. And the place where I live, when the Rebbe sent me and my wife on Shliach there 32 years ago, and it was a very long time, it was a community that had the largest concentration of Jews anywhere in Europe. Now, Europe is very large. I don't know if you study geography, you would know the different places. Europe is very large. It's not as large as the United States of America, but it's a similar concept. Different countries or communities coming together under one flag. England is separated by a sea, you may or may not know. And right now we're going through a referendum which means to vote, should we stay in the EU or should we come out of the EU? But that's another discussion. But right now where I live, nothing stays the same. And that's why you've got to appreciate every moment that you have in life. Sitting here in school, enjoying that which is given to you, the opportunities that you have. That's the most important thing, because everything changes, nothing stays the same. However old you are today, you're going to be older tomorrow. You're older than you were yesterday. Everything changes all the time. I'm sure you're very intrigued as to what that was all about, which I am going to share with you in a short while. But there's another reason that you're very lucky. Walking down the streets here in California, Los Angeles, you feel very, very comfortable as a Jewish man, woman, and child. Where I live today, even though it was that great place that we spoke about previously, and maybe that's why the Rebbe sent us there, but it's a very changed community. 30 odd years is 3 decades. A decade is 10 years. 3 decades, and things change. Today I live in a community which is very Muslim. It's very Indian. Every home that is sold, Jewish home, is bought by either Indians or Islamics. That's who buys these homes today. So I live in a very Islamic community today. But our Chabad house is a beacon of light. And it will always be a beacon of light, because that's what the Rebbe wanted it to be. And no matter what's going on around us, we remain exactly the same in terms of our individual growth and development. Is something that has to adapt to that which goes on around us, but at the same time never forgetting who we are. So we are the same in terms of being shluchim of the Rebbe. But things change around us, and as they change, we have to adapt to that change, but never forgetting who we are. So today, outside, I know you have some security here. It wasn't always like that in America. But wherever we go, we have to have security. So we have security outside the Chabad houses. We have security sometimes when I walk home from shul. Sometimes, depends what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. Sometimes I need security guards to walk home with me. So should I run away? Maybe some people would say, go and live in America, because you can walk down the street, you have shops on every corner, restaurants, so much food to buy, all the tires that you want you can get on every street corner, but you can walk down the street with a yarmulke and no one even looks at you. Here you feel so easy, you walk through the airport, no one even takes another look at you. You can put your talis and tefillin on the middle of the airport, no one even looks at you. Where we are, people look at us all the time. We have to make a decision, should I? Shouldn't I? What happens if somebody looks at me strange because I'm putting my tefillin on the street with somebody? Or the case may be. So we live in a very different place. It's not as bad as some parts of Europe. You might have heard about France, which is much more difficult, but it's a very worrying factor that's going on in Europe as a whole. But we are shluchim, and we have to remain shluchim, we have to remain strong. I'm going to tell you a story or two because I know you'd like to hear that. It's especially about what you saw before, but let me connect it to why we're here. The reason why I was invited here was to share with you a little bit about Yud Shevat. You all know by now what Yud Shevat is. And you all know what relationship Yud Shevat has with us. All of you, all of us in this room, we are all connected in exactly the same way. Whether it was Yud Shevat in 1940 or Yud Shevat in 1941, which was the beginning of our relationship with our Rebbe, the Rebbe which you spoke about here on your video of Hachlotas, looking at pictures, finding a relationship with the Rebbe who continues to guide us, even though things are very, very different and things change continuously. So it's a tremendous challenge for you guys. Very, very difficult to be tuned in and understand what's going on around us. But when you hear stories from guys like me, other shluchim that come in and share with you, it should give you a little bit of a chizuk. The first mimer that the Rebbe shared in 1941 was all about chesed. It was all about doing kind things. And who did he refer to? He referred through all the Rabbeim from the Alter Rebbe right through into the Frierdiker Rebbe and giving examples. I'm not going to give all the examples because you may have learned them already. Giving examples about what chesed is. Referring first to the Alter Rebbe who on Erev Yom Kippur, when we are so involved in preparing ourselves for the Yom Adin, for the Day of Judgment, with mikveh, with davening, with learning, with achonis, with preparation. What did the Alter Rebbe do? There was a lady who had just given birth to a baby, and she had no one to care for her. It wasn't like today, we're in a modern hospital. She was in a shack someplace in the woods, and she had no wood, she had no soup, and the Alter Rebbe himself chopped wood for this woman to have some warmth to look after this baby, and cooked soup, mara, cooked soup in order that their mother should be healthy to look after that child. When? This was on Erev Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur Day itself. Can you imagine that? And the Rebbe referred to each of the Rabbeim going through, right through to the Frierdiker Rebbe, who we probably know more about, was Moshe Nefesh, with every single aspect of his whole being, to make sure that Gashmis or Baruchnius, physically or spiritually, that they had exactly what they needed. So the Rebbe gave us Mivtzoim. What are the Mivtzoim? I'm sure you know them all, but why did the Rebbe give us Mivtzoim? The Rebbe gave us Mivtzoim, why? To help somebody else put on tefillin, to put a mezuzah on somebody else's house, to have a bayis mo'ele seforim, a bayis full of seforim for me. Why did the Rebbe do that? The Rebbe, as we learned, you all, put up your hand for your bar mitzvah. Quickly, please. Right, and those who are just about to be bar mitzvah, maybe you've had anachas tefillin, yes? You start to learn the mimer. Magid of Rabbi Yaakov, Mashu oima oisel ha'asois. That which the Eibishter does, or tells us to do, he does himself. The Rebbe refers to this pasuk where he says, Mimer Azal, that which the Rabbeim asked of us, he himself did. The Rebbe did all of these things, but why primarily did he give it to us to do it? It's for chesed, kindness to others. So now let's come to this video. What was that all about? Why did Aryeh Sufrin, a Shliach of the Rebbe, go to Buckingham Palace? You wouldn't perhaps appreciate really what Buckingham Palace is. It's not the White House. Buckingham Palace is very, very different. It's royalty. Lahavdil, what's royalty in our lives? Royalty was our relationship with the Rebbe. The only way I can compare, if one is able to compare, visiting a queen, it was like visiting my relationship with the Rebbe, which was many years prior to this. And every time, whether it was for Yechidus, which I was privileged to have a number of times, or whether it was coming for dollars. There were a number of occasions that I went for dollars. I was now living across the sea, so when you came over, whether it's Kinnis HaShluchim or some other reason, when we were waiting for dollars, you were waiting for a very long time. When we were waiting for Lekach on Erev Rosh Hashanah, we waited, Erev Yom Kippur, we waited a very long time. When we were going to give in our pan on Erev Rosh Hashanah, we waited a very long time. Those lines which you've seen on videos around the corner, down Brooklyn Avenue, the whole Eastern Parkway, we waited and waited and waited. We were going to see Malchus. We were going to see royalty. When I was waiting, it was 6 months before that I was told I was going to see the Queen. Can you imagine? 6 months? I had to wait for 6 months. Lots of things happened in between, security and so on and so forth. Eventually the day came. I remember once being taken to, I was together with my parents, Aleim and Shalom, they're no longer with us, in Olam HaEmes, and they're looking down at us, I'm sure. Both my parents were in education. My father was the director of education of the Lubavitch schools in London for over 40 years. He was like the headmaster, in charge of the school. My mother in charge of the girls' school. They're probably looking down at me, talking to you guys here in the school. I'm very happy. But this is what their life was about, education. My father and mother had a very special relationship with the Rebbe and Yechidus about individual children in the school. It was a very, very close relationship. But one time I came, I was already married, I came together with my parents for dollars, and JJ Hecht, who you're so lucky to have in the school, his grandfather, who he's named after, Rabbi Yaakov Yehuda Hecht, Olav Shalom, I had a very special and close relationship with him because after I did smicha, I did shimush. Shimush is how it's okay, you can learn the books to know how to be a rabbi, but how do you really know how to be a rabbi? You have to go with the rabbi, learn what to do, interact with people. And I had the zechus of going together with him. So he decided, he together with my parents, he was going to take us to the front of the line to see the Rebbe. So we wouldn't have to wait in all those lines. I went because I was with my parents at that time. You know, after I got the dollars from the Rebbe, I felt actually a little bit lost. Because I didn't have that hachana time. I didn't have that preparation time to be able to wait on the line and say to him, know where I was going, prepare myself for it. It's all very nice to push the line, but afterwards I thought about it and I said, you know what, I didn't actually gain for myself. My mother, my father were all elderly people, so you understand, but why me? I'm a young guy, I could have waited like everybody else. That was the only one time, and I felt quite bereft, if that's the right word, because I didn't have that opportunity to be able to prepare myself. So 6 months I waited to see the Queen. This is what was going on. But why did I get it? And I'll tell you why I got it. Because 25, 27 years ago, I started a program in London with the first of its kind. You have them here in America. I learned a lot from America, actually, to look after those less fortunate than ourselves. Those who had fallen foul to drugs, alcohol, various addictions. The detail of that is irrelevant at the moment, but people in very bad places. People who the world would rather throw them into a prison cell, take the key and throw it away. People who others had given up on. They're never going to make it. They're losers. You heard that expression? They're losers. They're never going to make it. They are lost to the world and no one cares about them. No one has any interest in them. Except the Lubavitch Rebbe in America. You know why? Because he sent shluchim all over the world to do exactly that. To care for those who others don't really care for. To care for those who have lost their way for whatever the reason. It's very sad and very unfortunate. But the Rebbe sent us to these places. So I started a program called Drugs Line, which you heard them announce it for community relations. What's Jewish community relations? Jewish community relations is not just about who comes to Minyan. It's not just about giving a shia. It's about working with the community, whether they be Jewish or non-Jewish. The Rebbe gave us a mitzvah of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. That's our responsibility. We've got to work with the nations of the world that they understand their responsibilities, because that's what the Rebbe wanted from us. So in every sphere of our life, that's what we did. And we cared about people that others didn't care about. So others in the community, not myself, I didn't put my hand up and say, I want this award. But others in the community recognized this. And therefore, I was given this. Great privilege and honor. But who was it for? Was it for me? I saw it as the Rebbe getting this honor. I saw this as something much bigger than me. What's the proof of it? I'll tell you what the proof of it is. As soon as this happened, Rabbi Moshe Kotlarsky, I'm sure you've heard of him, the head of the Shluchim, let's call him the father of the Shluchim all over the world. Maybe he has relatives here, I don't know. The father of Shluchim, who cares about every single Shliach, travels the whole world. He's a man getting on in years now, and he travels to see how Shluchim, especially if they're in far away places. He calls me up, and he was coming up to the Kinnis HaShluchim and says, Aryeh, I want you to give the Dvar Torah at the Kinnis HaShluchim. So I said, Rabbi Kotlarsky, I've got two things to say to you. First of all, I'm not planning to come to the Kinnis this year. Of course, I want to go, circumstances. And secondly, Rabbi Kotlarsky, This honor is always given to new shluchim. New shluchim who have been on shlichus for 1 year maybe, or their first year, second year. I've been on shlichus for 25 years at a time, 26 years. Why me? First of all, I wasn't planning to come, and secondly, why me? Give it to someone else. So Rabbi Kotlarsky says, listen, do you know who was at the Kinnis HaShluchim at the banquet particularly? Everybody who cares about Chabad. Everybody who cares about Chabad Lubavitch, the wealthy people, the poor people, influential people, government people, money people, they're all there. They're not looking really at you at all. They want to see how one of the Shluchim of the Rebbe was honored by the Queen of England. So when you come, you are giving honor to the Rebbe. What do you think I was able to do? Do you think I was still able to say no? I turned everything around in order to be able to be there. And it was the most frightening experience in my life. Do you know what it's like to speak to 4,000 shluchim? All of them are speakers. All of them are rabbis. All of them are fundraisers. All of them know it better than you, and you're going to get up and give them something. That was the most frightening. I've been speaking publicly for over 30 years. That was the most frightening experience in my life. But why did I do it? Because it was an honor to the Rebbe. This story, what happened here, wasn't about me. It was actually about the Rebbe. The buildings that we have today, and Kanai Nora, we have a new building going up in the community that I told you about how difficult it is. We have a new building going up right now. It's a concrete structure. We're waiting for it to be finished. In our sister, we have now 4 shluchim that work in the surrounding areas. In our sister Chabad house, we just put on an extension on that building. My wife and I, who have been in this community, which I spoke to you about for over 30 years, go every other Shabbos to another community to start setting it up, because that's where the Yidden live. Years ago, if somebody came to Rabbi and said, Rabbi, I'm buying a house in a neighborhood, but there isn't really a shul there, what should I do? And it means I'll have to travel. So I remember hearing from another great rabbi who said, you know what? When they ask you such a question, you say, don't ask the rabbi that question. That question you ask a real estate agent, an estate agency. You're obviously moving to the wrong neighborhood. You need to move to a neighborhood where there's a shul. Today it's different. People don't move to neighborhoods where there's shuls. People move to neighborhoods that they like. They don't like the Muslims, they'll move to a different neighborhood. There's no shul. So what do? So now we have to bring Yiddish guy to them. So we have to bring a Chabad house to them that they should have a shul. So we plant seeds there, and you know what? These people are like what we call honey to a bee. You put the light on, as the Rebbe said, make a beacon, and everybody will come and everybody will look. We made a Yom Kippur service there for the first time this year. We didn't know if we had a minyan. We had over 100 people. It's in the country, the trees. And the people were saying that the Yidden were coming out to the trees like bears out of a forest. They were coming. Why were they coming? Because we brought Yiddishkeit to them. Why did we go to Buckingham Palace? We went to Buckingham Palace because the Rebbe was being honored for caring about another Yid. The whole essence of Yud Shevat and our relationship with the Rebbe is about Ava. And this same Fabrengen, the Rebbe also said, but there's 2 conditions. We have to do it with Simcha, we have to do it with joy, and we have to do it with Achdus. You know what Achdus is? Unity. Doing it unified together, to be excited, to want it, to do it all together. Let me conclude with one story which goes back quite a few years. In the first Chabad house that we had, there was a boy that used to come in. It was a very small place, but it was next to a big public school. There was a boy who was 12 years old, and 11 and 12 years old. He used to come in every single day from lunch. He was a meek little boy. These schools are very rough. Some of them are big boys, even though they're not so old, but I don't know what they feed them on, but they're big and large and so on. And this was a meek little boy. He used to come in every lunch. He used to eat, he used to go downstairs, and food that we put away from one Shabbos to the next, for the next Shabbos Kiddush, not herring goes off, but cakes or biscuits or something, crisps or chips, you call them. Those sorts of things last from, and everything started disappearing. And we didn't know where it was going. Slowly but surely we found out that this boy was taking it all. And slowly but surely we found out, why was he taking it? Not because he was stealing from Chabad house. Because he wanted to keep kosher, and his parents didn't. So what was he surviving on? The crisps, the biscuits, the leftovers from Sforim started disappearing. Tanya, Chumoshim also started disappearing. And what happened was, every lunchtime he used to come to Chabad house because that's where he wanted to get something to eat, a little bit of friendship, whilst he was living in this school. His mother was not happy, he didn't have a father at home, it was quite a difficult scenario. One day he asked me to come to speak to his parents. So I came to his mother and his stepfather. So I came to the house to speak to them about trying to help the son, to see if they would allow him to do some things which are not too difficult for them, like give him a little corner or cupboard in the house where he can put some paper goods, have a little pot that he can cook his own. He didn't want anything from his parents, just give me a corner to be able to do it. They were adamant not, because they were very anti-Hasidic rabbis, because they belonged to the Reform. So the very same night, they brought the Reform rabbi to see us as well. So I walk in, I see the Reform rabbi, see what's going on here. So the Reform rabbi says to this boy, you know, I eat some of that stuff, it's not so terrible, you could eat some of it. So that really didn't help us very much. This young man says, come and see my bedroom. He lived in the top of the house, parents never went to the top of the house. Like a staircase like this. On the door was a big mezuzah, bigger than in my house. Where he got it from, I don't know. I went in there, all the sporim that were missing in my Chabad house were piled up in this boy's room. Because now, you know, he's now a little bit older, piled up in this boy's room. And, sorry, he was over bar mitzvah already, so he had tefillin, and he had the television in the corner, completely covered with sporim, it was all dusty. And this is where he was living, this Yiddish life, hidden away as if he was in Russia somewhere, because his parents wouldn't allow him. He also had a big knack for writing like a ksiva or a soifa. So we said to him, practice it, practice it. And slowly but surely, he became one of our community. It then came the time for him to go to yeshiva. We sent him, so he finished school, he couldn't do anything till he was 16, so we wanted him to go to yeshiva. But once they found out he was going to yeshiva, then the parents woke up and said, oh, I hear you. So the father, who we had never heard from before, started asking me about questions. You're sending my son away. Someone's sending your son away. So your son wants to go away. We're helping, we're facilitating it. But since you called me already, maybe you want to give me some money, because I raised the money to help the boy go to yeshiva. Maybe you want to give me some money out to buy him shoes and a jacket. And he said, oh no, Rabbi, you're doing a great job. So that was it, had his askama, and then we moved on. Well, what happened? He went to Chabad, to Balchuv Yeshiva Chabad, and slowly but surely he became a frum boy. I was in Avelis for my father the year he got married. And he got married to a young lady from Kfar Chabad area, and his wedding was in Kfar Chabad. He said to me, he called me out, Rabbi Sufrin, said, I want you to come to my wedding. I said, look, I'm in Avelis for my father. I'm not really able to go to a wedding. I can't dance, I can't sing. I said, I can't really come. He says, Rabbi Sufrin, you're like my father. I have nobody else that's going to come from my family. What do you think I did? Of course I went. Could I dance at his wedding? No. But I could go to the chuppah, I could take him to the chuppah. What happened to this boy? He became a soifer. And I made a deal with him. I said, every single, because it's very hard to buy into the market of Safris and Eretz Yisrael when everybody's a soifer. I said, every single mezuzah that you write, I will buy it from you. I will give you the parnasa, and I will take those mezuzahs from you, because we, Baruch Hashem, do lots of mezuzahs on Mitzvah. We probably do from our Chabad houses, probably do more than the whole of London, it's the whole of England. Baruch Hashem, we're very good in that mitzvah, and I buy them from him. What happened? So you take a kid from public school, who has no love, no food, wants a bit of Yiddishkeit. What happens in the end? We bring him in, and he becomes part of your family. He becomes an extension of who you are. How many times has this happened? Over and over and over again. Hundreds and thousands, can I know of Eden. Where does it stem from? From 1940 and 1941. The Stalkus of the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Nasius of our Rebbe, all interconnected. And all of us here are the reason that the Rebbe gave us that Farbrengen and gave us the Mitzvah. It's not about us, it's about what we do for other people. So when we're learning, of course we've got to learn. When we're putting tefillin on, of course we've got to put on tefillin. Of course we've got to have ashras. And of course we've got to have a mezuzah on the door. But at the same time we've got to be thinking about, what can I do for someone else? And as the Rebbe said, be'ava with love, be'simcha with joy, and be'achtus with unity. I hope and daven that Mitzvah Shem, we should all have this, of course, because we're all in the same boat right now. We should all have this course of finding our connection, whatever it is, an extra bit of learning through the mitzvahs that you're doing, through the achlotas that you're taking, through the images that are being placed before you in this wonderful school, in this special setting here in California where it's so easy to be Jewish. But you have other challenges as well. And we should all find our connection. We should all feel strong through that connection. And most important, our ava, our love, our chesed, our kindness that we share with others. Nobody knows where it's going to go. You don't do something with the intention of coming to the Queen. You do it because when we stood before the Rebbe, that was royalty. When we stood before the Rebbe online, we knew we were going to see royalty. And there was 2 minutes. You saw us only by the Queen for 2 minutes. And probably similar time that we would stand by the Rebbe, 60 seconds, 120 seconds. That was true royalty. And the Rebbe was engaged with us 100% at that time and continues to be engaged with us when we open ourselves up to allow the Rebbe in. I wish you should go mechai l'choil from strength to strength in all of your personal endeavors. Bar mitzvah boys, just be bar mitzvah, becoming bar mitzvah, make the hachonas, be prepared to work that little bit harder to make it happen, because you're the ones that will benefit from it. And the mitzvah Hashem, your school, your Rebbeim, your parents, the community, and ultimately the Rebbe will have lots of nachas from you. Thank you for listening to me. Take care.
Boys, thank you very, very much. I'd like to just take the moment to thank Rabbi Sufrin for, although he's being here is on a his personal nature, but turning his visit into Los Angeles into a part of his shlichus of spreading the idea of Iskashrus and preparing you, Talmidim, for Yud Shevat as we're approaching Yud Shevat just in a few short hours. I'd like to thank Rabbi Sufrin by presenting him with a token of our appreciation involving you boys, or many of you boys here in the Cheder, by giving him 2 of the Sfarim, 2 of the books that Talmidim in the Cheder over the course of the past years have compiled stories of their families with the Rebbe. What better way to go into Yud Shevat than having new stories of the Rebbe with personal family stories of Talmidim here in Cheder, many of them from Talmidim sitting here in this room. Rabbi Sufrin has a long plane ride back to London, and now he has what to keep him busy, as Hashem, with new stories. So this is volume 7 and volume 8, the last 2 volumes of the Talmidim Cheder here published themselves. Thank you very much, Rabbi Sufrin. Thank you very much.